Hello and welcome to another Fabula Ultima class feature. This time it's the Mutant, a guide by Fabula Points, me! So jumping straight in as I always do, your Mutant is your mutant. Basically the book says abomination, experimental lycanthrope. This is a person or thing that has been enhanced somehow to have like traits of other things imbued into it. So let's just get into it. Free benefits: you permanently increase your maximum hit points by 5, which is good. Everyone likes hit points, it means you die less often. Pretty strong. But the skills, it goes from pretty strong to spectacular in my opinion. And also, I'm not sure how to pronounce a lot of these. I'm going to give it my best. But yeah, first one, Acrom Morphosis. I said that slowly to make sure. Acrom Morphosis. Your unarmed strikes deal 6 plus skill level times 2 extra damage, and you gain a bonus equal to skill level to your accuracy checks with them. This bit alone, without the rest of it, is huge if you're an unarmed attacker. So just to kind of check, the unarmed strikes in a basic weapon, they deal high roll plus 0 physical damage. So this now, with 1 point in Acrom Morphosis, you deal 8 extra damage because skill level times 2 is 2. You in maths you do parentheses first, so that skill level 1 times 2 becomes 2, then 6 plus 2 is obviously 8. So you do 8 damage. So you'd be doing the same as a crossbow would, or you'd be doing the same as a pistol. You basically got a pistol punch, right? But it gets better. There's more to this skill. After the start of your turn during a conflict, you may choose a weapon category other than brawling. If you do, your unarmed strikes now belong to the chosen category. If you choose bow, firearm or thrown, they become ranged weapons instead of melee. So you'd actually have a pistol, but it would be a pistol that does dex plus might instead of a pistol that does dex plus insight. Like, that's amazing. And then if you choose a dagger or sword, they cannot be used with triple slash. These changes last until the start of your next turn, but because this is free, you can just choose. You can just keep choosing the same option. So like, you can tell your DM, like, I'm gonna keep choosing pistol, and then you'll have pistol punches. Like, this is great. But because it's skill level times 2, and we've got up to 3 skill levels in this, the damage goes from 8 to 10 to 12. So a high roll plus 12, nothing on the first page. Not quite as good as a war axe, but you'd be a heavy spear. Yeah, you'd be a heavy spear. Only the war axe would do more damage for you. And that's 3 skill levels, which, if you choose to, you could have at level 5. Like, you can start punching as hard as a heavy spear, which is just massive. It's huge. Like, if you're an unarmed, if you want an unarmed build, this is like, you've got to. Like, obviously, if you're not interested in unarmed strikes, you probably want to give the mutant a miss. To be honest, there's things you can do with it, but unarmed strikes is a lot of what the mutant's about. But our next skill, you can take 4 skill levels on this. So after one of your attacks or offensive spells causes one or more enemies to lose hit points, if you are in crisis, you may recover skill level times 5 hit points. So that goes 5, 10, 15, 20 hit points at max. Interesting to note, the Chanter's Magic Chant isn't an attack or offensive spell, so it technically wouldn't trigger. I'd probably allow this if I was a DM, to be honest. But yeah, words like rules as written, it doesn't. But like, this is good unless you're running a crisis build where you need to be in crisis. Then, you know, healing away from crisis is a good thing. The next one, Ecdysis. I don't know. There's worse pronunciations. I'm gearing you up for worse. Ecdysis, I'm going to call it. After you lose hit points due to damage, if that damage had a type other than physical, you may spend 10 hit points to gain resistance to that damage type until you use this skill again. You cannot use the skill if doing so will reduce you to 0 hit points. This is enormous. Every class in the game could probably benefit from this, and there's only a 1 skill point skill. So it's easy to dip into this. So like, I want you to imagine, right, you're in a setting, and say, I've used it before, but it's a pretty easy one to understand. Let's say you're delving into a volcano and you're fighting like fire elementals, right? They're going to deal fire damage. First time one's hit you is going to hurt. You spend 10 hit points, and now you have resistance to it, and then the next, every fire attack that comes towards you will do less damage. Like, and you can keep it. So like, say for example, like in that case, let's say you knew the volcano was coming and you bought fire resistant armor. Say, let's say there were things in the volcano that dealt, like, I don't know, bolt damage, for example, and you weren't expecting it. You could use this skill to gain resistance to bolt damage while your armor does fire damage, and you could be more resistant and more tanky. There's nothing not to love about this skill except for the name, Ecdysis. I'm sure it like has a specific meaning. I don't know what it is. The next one, Genclepsis. There's 2 skill points you can do with this. So when you deal damage to one or more NPCs, you learn this species, and the GM chooses skill level Theal Forms, which is the next skill. So I'm going to kind of quickly do this, appropriate to those NPCs. If you've acquired the Theal Morphosis skill, you immediately pay its HP cost and use it to manifest these Theal Forms, even if they're not amongst what you've learned. So this is just another way to use the Theal Morphosis. I will go over this again when I talk about these to make it more obvious what it's doing. But the Theal Morphosis, you can have up to 6 skill levels in this. Each time you acquire the skill, you learn a Theal form, which is on the next page. You may use an action to spend 1/3 of your current hit points rounded down, which is a pretty big amount of hit points, but you do gain an extra 5 for being a mutant, to manifest the effects of up to 2 Theal forms from those you have learned. The details of this transformation are explained on the next page. So let's go over the transformation. Let's see what transformations are, and let's go back, and then we can kind of discuss. So, Theal Forms. Theal Forms are mutations that grant powerful abilities. The way they manifest is completely up to you. Pterotheria, for instance, might turn you into a person-sized bat or simply give you large feathered wings. So each one of these has like suggestions. So like this one's got like frogs, salamanders, this one's got bears, dinosaurs, this one's got squids, octopi, like, but they're suggestions. So you can, like, flavor is free. You can manifest how these will kind of appear for your character as you like, but the suggestions make sense to what the abilities do. So once you use the Theal Morphosis skill, the chosen Theal forms last until the end of the scene. They also end if you die or fall unconscious. Perform the guard action or use the Theal Morphosis skill again. This includes using it through Genclepsis. So you may end the effects of your Theal Morphosis at any time, but during a conflict you can only do so on your turn before or after an action. And when the scene ends, if you are under the effects of Theal Morphosis, you may spend 10 mind points to extend your current Theal forms to the next scene you will be in. So say, for example, if you have like 2 combat scenes, one after the other, say if you're defeating someone's guards and then the actual boss rushes in, right? You can spend 10 mind points so you don't have to go through that action again, and you can go straight into the fight. So, yeah, let's just jump straight into the Theal forms. So the first one is Amphibia. It recommends like the suggestions of frogs, salamanders, regenerating creatures, things like that. So you may breathe underwater and your eyes can see perfectly in dim light, which is nice. Like, I don't know how often breathe underwater will come up in some campaigns. Obviously that's very specific. Everyone wants to see in dim light. Like it helps you at night or helps you with sneaking. And then when you recover hit points, you recover 5 additional hit points, and you may immediately recover from a single status effect of your choice. Like, that's decent, you know. Everyone at some point will need healing. You heal more. Like, you know, I wouldn't say this is particularly strong, but it's not weak either. I'd call it a solid choice. I like it. Arpactida. I'm probably butchering that one as well. There's probably people in the comments like, it's not pronounced like that, and then they'll type it out and then like, oh, I have no idea what they're saying because it's typed. But the suggestions are wolves, birds of prey, creatures with sharp hunting senses. So this is like a hunting kind of Theal form. So you treat your insight as if it were 1 dice higher to a maximum of d12, which is always nice. When you deal damage to one or more creatures for the first time during your turn, if at least one of them is in crisis, you deal 5 extra damage to each of those creatures. So this is like a Theal form where you're kind of, it's like the hunt, right, where you've already wounded someone and you're going in for the kill. So this is like just that, basically. It's kind of hard to add extra flavor when it's already got good flavor. But yeah, dealing 5 extra damage to each of those creatures when at least one of them is in crisis is good, because like people are going to obviously focus down, or usually anyway, good battle tactics is to focus down one enemy at a time, right? Once it's in crisis, if you've got an attack that deals multi, so you're hitting more than one creature at once, you can deal extra damage. Like, it's situational, but you can use it to your advantage. So again, it's a solid choice, and extra insight is always good. Dynamotheria, which is bears, dinosaurs, creatures of massive strength and size. So you treat your might as if you were one size higher to maximum d12, like with this one, I don't want to pronounce it again. When you succeed on a check to advance or turn back a clock, if that check includes might, you may fill or erase one additional section of that clock. So this is very situational. Obviously the might die is higher isn't, you can use that a lot. But it depends how often your party engages in clocks to do with might. Like, I love clocks, I try and use them in my games as often as possible, but there are times where this might not come up, whereas other ones you can make come up a lot. So like, this is situational, there are other ones you can pick that are less situational. Like Electrophora. So this is electric creatures, lightning elementals, robots, things like that. So when you deal damage with an attack or spell, you may have all that damage become bolt. While your unarmed strikes deal bolt damage, any enemy who loses 20 more hit points due to one of your unarmed strikes also suffers slow. So you can use this to suddenly, like say for example, let's say you're an elementalist and you focused on fire, and then you realized, oh, that's a bad move. You can take this and your spells can deal bolt instead, if you choose. Because it says you may have all that damage become bolt, it doesn't say that it is bolt, so you can then suddenly have a thing that changes it. But then the extra causing slow only happens with your unarmed strikes. 20 or more hit points. If you are taking, I can't remember the name of the skill, Acrom Morphosis, attacks would deal up to an extra 12 damage, so you'd have high roll plus 12. You could chain this with Dynamotheria, so your might will be higher, so you'd have a better chance of being able to deal 20 hit points due to an unarmed strike to make them suffer slow. But obviously there's heroic skills and other ways you can get your unarmed damage up, but this is just talking about the mutant specifically here. So yeah, I like it. Free conditions, always good. Neurophagoida, not deer, Neurophagoida, which is parasites, undead creatures who feed on souls. So when you use the biophagy skill, you may also you also recover an amount of mind points equal to 4 plus your skill level in Theal Morphosis. Theal Morphosis can go up to 6, so you can have up to 10. So biophagy lets you recover hit points if you are in crisis when you attack or cause spells. So this also lets you recover mind points. So if you have the right amount of skills, you can do a spell that costs like 10 mind points and you can recover 10. So this potentially is a way to give you not quite unlimited mind points, but way to get back mind points for your small spells anyway. So I like it. This is a good one for casters. Well, not just casters, like anyone. A lot of people use mind points for skills, but like, you get the idea. Like, getting free resources back is always good. So yeah, none of these have been particularly bad. Dynamotheria I think is the weakest, but when we move on we'll find a lot more options. So Placophora, which is crustaceans, turtled, armored creatures and vehicles. You may treat your defense score as being equal to 13 plus half your skill level in Theal Morphosis. Again, Theal Morphosis is 6, so you can have up to 3, so that makes your defense score up to 16. You may still use your normal scores if better. So if you're not wearing armor and your defense score is lacking, you can use this to kind of defense up, which is fine. Extra defense is always good. Like, you'd have to wonder about whether having armor might be better, or because by using this you lose access to other things because you can only have 2 Theal Forms for now. Spoiler for heroic skills later. But yeah, like, again, it's not bad. The next one, Pneumophora. So this is jet propulsion mollusks, great winged beasts or rockets. So when you deal damage with attack or spell, you may have all that damage become air. While your unarmed strikes deal air damage, any enemy who loses 20 more hit points due to one of your unarmed strikes also suffers weak. So this is similar to, it's the same as Electrophora, but with air and weak instead of bolt and slow. Pretty solid. Nothing really amazing, but it's good. The next one, Polypoda. Your attacks with unarmed strikes gain multi 3. This is massive, absolutely terrifying. So say for example, if you really want to be a mutant at level 5, You can have a Theal form. You can pick Theal Morphosis for Polypodus. Your unarmed strikes gain multi-3. You can power into Acrom Morphosis, so your attacks, unarmed strikes will deal plus 12 damage, which have multi-3. So you can just instantly, like, you can call it a pistol as well if you want to give it range. So you can have range punch that do an extra 12 damage with multi-3 right from the bat, and you can just instantly take out crowds. Like, your damage output with this just multiplies massively. It's kind of broken, to be honest, with what else you can do. Like, it would be hard for me to make a mutant and not take Polypoda. Like, obviously there are ways you cannot, but it's just enormous. And then to make that enormous one even better, Terratheria, so this is bats, winged insects, flying creatures, you are able to fly. Like, just gifting you flight whenever you want it, 1 skill level, and all you have to do is sacrifice a third of your HP, which you can always recover back. Like, you are able to fly. In addition to the obvious advantages in mobility, your melee attacks can target flying creatures, and you cannot be targeted by melee attacks unless the attacker is flying or is somehow able to reach flying targets. So, especially early game, you could be immune to a lot of people, they just can't target you. But do remember that means your allies will be targeted more often, but that's what happens when you can fly. These benefits do not apply if you're unable to fly freely, such as when you're inside a vehicle designed for a human-sized creature in a narrow corridor, things like that. Additionally, when you suffer air, bolt or ice damage during a conflict scene, you lose these benefits until the start of your next turn. So air, bolt or ice are things that can knock you down, so that melee creatures can target you. But this is enormous. Like, if you want to, like, scout ahead to see how many guards are at the enemy base, you can fly over them. If you need to sneak into a city, you can fly over walls. Like, if there's something high up on a ledge, you can fly to get it. Like, flight is enormous. And then you can combine it with Polypoda. You can have a multi-3. You can pistol punch from the air. Like, it's just massive, truly massive. Like, this is so strong. But I need to not linger and move on because there's a few more. So Pyrophora, which is bombardier beetles, pistol shrimps, and fire elementals, is the same as your Electrophora and your Pneumophora, but instead of the other skills, when you deal fire damage, enemy uses 20 more hit points, suffers dazed. You know, so we've got dazed, we've got weak, we've got slow. Like, this is awesome. Like, as I've said before, free conditions are always good. So yeah, Tachytheria, which is cats, gazelles, hares, creatures that are agile and quick. You treat your dexterity as if it was 1 dice higher, which is like the Dynamatheria, and I'm not pronouncing that again. Dexterity 1 dice higher to maximum of 12. When you succeed on the check to advance, turn back the clock. If the clock includes dexterity, you may fill or erase 1 additional section of the clock. So it's less like this one, more like Dynamatheria. But yeah, you know, it's pretty good. If you constantly doing dex clocks, then it might be worth it. But then we got the last one, Toxicophoria, which is spider, snakes, toxic slimes, and venomous creatures. When you deal damage with an attack or spell, you may have all that damage become poison. When your unarmed strikes deal poison damage, enemy uses 20 more hit points. Due to your unarmed attacks, also suffers poisoned. This initially looks the same as like these dazed, weak, and slow one, right? But you remember, poison doesn't affect 1 skill, if it affects 2. So if we take the character sheet, which is the fastest way to find it, not bonds, the page. So we've got weak here. So we've got a way to do weak. We've got dazed there. So we've got weak, dazed, and we've got slow. So we don't have shaken, we have poison. Poison does might and willpower at the same time. So, like, that's instantly stronger because it affects 2, and like it's pretty awesome. Like, like, say you can combine this with Polypoda, right? And then you're suddenly hitting 3 people, and then if you roll particularly well, those 3 people will take 20 hit points and they will suffer poisoned, and you can just be this poisoned octopus. Like, when I built like my Dark Angry Squid classic character build. I should have lent more into this, to be honest, but I didn't. But you could use this really well, and I don't really want to make a build just for this because it's going to be really similar, but that's enormous. So yeah, those are the options. But before we go on to the heroic skills, let's just make sure we've got Genclepsis and things down, right? Because we kind of glossed over them to make sure we knew what the Theal Forms were. So I'll just go over this again. So when you deal damage to one or more NPCs, you learn this species, and the GM chooses skill level Theal Forms appropriate to those NPCs. So you can have up to 2. So if you've acquired Theal Monster skill, you can immediately pay half its cost and use it to manifest. It'll pay the HP cost. So say if you're hit by a squid, Polypoda is obvious, and you can suddenly transform into a squid, so you can have the same kind of things. Yeah, there's not much more to say about that, but I just wanted to make sure we kind of understand Genclepsis before we move on, because there is a heroic skill that interacts with this. Speaking of heroic skills, let's go into that. I don't have the right page up. Why don't I have the right page up? I am on a different screen. I'm gonna go into the right page. I'm gonna zoom out. Here we go. So, heroic skills. This is the first time when we go into heroic skills that we have an entire page dedicated to one class, which isn't just a single class. So all 3 of these, greater Acrom Morphosis, greater Ecdysis, and greater Theal Morphosis, are all interact with these skills. So, greater Acrom Morphosis. So this is your unarmed strike attacking one. So you gain the following benefits based on the current category of your unarmed strikes. So if they're arcane, brawling, dagger, or thrown, your attacks treat the defense of each target as being equal to the current insight dice size. So if you're attacking someone who's like heavily armored and they might not have as much insight, then it's as if the defense is lower for you, which is good. You know, lower defense means you can hit them more often. It's solid. There's nothing wrong with that. Bow or sword, your attacks with unarmed strikes that target 2 or more creatures deal 5 extra damage. So if you pick sword and you have the Polypoda, Polypoda itself targets multiple creatures, so that, you know, that instantly deals the extra damage for you, which is good. Firearm heavy, your unarmed strikes deal 5 extra damage to constructs and 5 extra damage to non-construct creatures who have at least 1 shield and or martial armor equipped. So this is dealing extra damage to heavy armor targets who are harder to hit, unless you can also get the arcane, brawling, and dagger thrown things, which there are ways to do. So flail and spear, you gain a +2 bonus to defense and attacks with unarmed strikes may target flying creatures, which is good. More options to target flying creatures is amazing. But then it ends with, if your unarmed strikes are treated as belonging to more than one category, for instance due to the Blade Adept heroic skill, you gain all the benefits of the corresponding categories. So let's quickly look at Blade Adept. Put it on that page. So let me zoom in on this one because it looks a bit weird. Okay, so Blade Adept is when you have one or more melee dagger weapons equipped, so you'd have to choose your punches will be dagger. You gain a bonus to defense, magic defense, treat those weapons as belonging to brawling, sword, and thrown. So if you have dagger, it also counts as brawling, which it already does, thrown, which it already does, and sword. So if you choose a dagger, the dagger can count as a sword and you deal extra damage. So yeah, that's how it works. I don't know why I paused then. So yeah, and your attacks with weapons that belong to dagger can target creatures that normally can't be targeted by melee, so you'd be able to do flying ones, but because it counts as thrown weapons can do that anyway. But yeah, so you've got extra options to make your attacks kind of, to flavor your attacks better, make them stronger. I like greater Acrom Morphosis. If you're an unarmed strike build who's like this, you'll be able to get good distance out of this. Greater Ecdysis. So Ecdysis is the one where you spend 10 hit points to gain resistance to the damage type until you use the skill again. So when you use the Ecdysis skill, you may also choose one or both options. You recover from all status effects, which is huge if they're piled on you, and or if you're affected by one or more spells with a duration of scene, you are no longer affected by any of those spells. So if you're fighting, like, say, like a boss or someone who likes to pile status effects and like duration scene spells that are like really crippling, you can spend 10 hit points after you lose hit points due to damage to be able to end them all on you at once, instantly recovering. So this is a good, like, being able to taunt a boss to be like, haha, that's not very effective. Like, I like it. I don't believe it's as strong as Greater Acrom Morphosis, but it is a good, solid option. The last one on this page, but not the last one, Greater Theriomorphosis. So when you use the Theriomorphosis skill on your turn during a conflict, if this did not happen through the Genclepsis skill, you may manifest the effects of up to 3 Theal Forms from those you have learned instead of 2. Then you may immediately perform an additional action. This action cannot be used for the Theriomorphosis skill, because if it did, then you can use Theriomorphosis again, and you could basically have an infinite turn with infinite actions and no one can do anything because you're constantly using the same thing, which makes sense. But yeah, you can have up to 3. So you could choose Polypowder, Terratheria, and Toxicophora. So your unarmed attacks get multi-3. You can fly, so a lot of people can't hurt you. And then if you deal 20 or more hit points from your attacks, they also suffer poisoned, and it just causes poison damage. Like, you can you can really riff with this one. It's enormous. Like, these skills, like just the mutant in general, to be honest, is so strong. It's really strong. But there's one more heroic skill we need to talk about. Genclepsis. So this one, you have to also be a Chimerist, and you have to have the spell mimic from the Chimerist on top of being a mutant with Genclepsis. So when you use the Genclepsis skill on NPC, which is the one that lets you learn what let your DM choose the Theal Forms that are associated with it, and then you can transform into those. If that NPC species is among those you can learn with spells from the spell mimic skill, the game master must reveal all spells known by that NPC, which is pretty cool, like, on its own. Then if that NPC knows one or more spells, you may learn one of those spells as a Chimerist spell of your own. This is huge. So one of the drawbacks from the Chimerist I've seen in my campaigns is if you kill, like, a beast that is able to cast spells faster than it casts a spell, you have no idea it was able to, and you can't learn the spell. But this is a way that all you have to do is deal damage to it and you can learn the spells, right? But it gets even better. Like, if you lean into this hard, let's go, we'll have to go up a few. If we go Symbolist, right? The Symbolist has the symbol of Metamorphosis, which I've covered in my Symbolist class video. Like, I know I'm talking about lots of different classes here, but bear with me. You can choose a species, and the creature bearing the symbol is treated as belonging to that species. So say, for example, if you are fighting like a human mage who's like the master of magic and knows all spells, for example, if you can get the symbol of Metamorphosis on that, call him like a beast or a plant or something, and then deal damage. The damage will then be able to trigger the Genclepsis, so you can then not only get his Theal Forms, but because you have spell mimic, you can copy one of his spells. So if that mage has like a calamity inducing spell of some kind that you can't normally learn, you've got it. It'll count as a beast spell or whatever, but you can use this to learn like giant magic that you normally wouldn't be able to as a Chimerist, which is huge. Like, if this book was out when I did my Chimerist build, or when I did my Chimerist video, I would absolutely talk about this as being like a must-have. So like, and also like, if you want to, no, I'm not gonna talk about Chimerist interactions other than that. But my Genclepsis, if you are a Chimerist, is enormous. Like, this takes your Chimerist, dials it up. It was already strong, but this makes it even stronger. But yeah, that's the mutant. Gone on a little bit. I don't think I'll be ranting as much as the pilot which is the next video, because while the Mutant has 4 pages, the pilot has 10. It's going to be a long video. But yeah, anyway, that's the Mutant. I believe it's very powerful. The Esper I also thought was powerful. This is, yeah, it's just good. I like it. It's good. Like, I'm going to stop rambling. I really like him. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.